Gentlemen, I will be blunt. It's good. It's much better than I thought any remastering of Oblivion would be, especially from this age of Bethesda. You can definitely see the seams of Starfield poking out in places, especially in the facial animations, but the loading screens are perfectly fine here. In fact, they're faster and better than Skyrim. I won't remark too heavily on the visual presentation of the remaster, because in order to bring out even more nostalgia for the bad old days of making do on my parents' Pentium 4, this game on low settings still kinda brings my modest RX 5700 to its knees. I'm getting 40s to 50s in frame rate, some hitching here or there, and in some places, especially standing in a specific spot in the arena, the global lighting freaks the hell out. But I can't discount that as not being my problem. The graphical update is really just one aspect of the remaster. The most important part of any re-release of Oblivion was actually stability. Oblivion has been pretty stable on console to my knowledge, but on PC it crashes constantly. I'm happy to report that I experienced very few, if any, non-graphical glitches in Remaster, and exactly 0 crashes. Although it did halt to think for a minute after it finished compiling shaders on first start. This is pretty much unprecedented for the franchise and Bethesda first-party games. It's rock solid, if not in frame rate then in reliability, which is honestly not something I thought I'd ever say about Oblivion. Oblivion fans like myself have become accustomed to a certain lower standard of living. Quite honestly, after a few hours of playing and the game simply working as intended the whole time, I felt myself tearing up. This game feels like Oblivion was always meant to be, but time and budget constraints and an immature development ecosystem simply got in the way. It literally just works. Actually. For reals this time. I promise. Now, sprucing up a classic like this is a minefield. People like the way it was, but admit that it had flaws, and they want it to be improved, but also don't want it to change. And I'm positively glowing to report that the developers understood the assignment. Combat feels dynamic and visceral because they added a lot more feedback to hits, but it's still basically the same in function, without the awkward, floaty feeling from before. And I'd say it doesn't suffer from any of Skyrim's pitfalls. Enemy combatants try to flank you in order to bypass your shield. They'll simply stop attacking if you hold your shield up so that they recover stamina and don't create an opening. These feel like real enemies that are trying to outsmart you. Unfortunately, Skyrim's signature center-out health bars have returned, and I honestly don't understand the psychology of including these anywhere in anything. They are simply less clear and harder to read. Even Skyrim doesn't use these bars for magicka or stamina, so why use them for health? Also, if you reduce to 0 stamina for a few seconds, you just get half your bar back instantly. I believe this is trying to mitigate Classic's issue with chain stagger. I'm happy to report that the perks from weapons have been reworked. Rather than simply getting new power attacks that were awful to use, you get new effects, like the ability to cause enemies to bleed. Bow combat is much improved with arrow trails and hit markers, and I swear they've sped up arrow speed to make it feel snappier. Stealth archers will have a blast with the rework. I sure as hell did. Oblivion's signature one-handed magic system once again allows spells to be slung while weapons are drawn. And one complaint I can lodge is that the particle effect on detect life is a bit muted, but again, that may just be my graphics settings. Clairvoyance has been added as a basic spell for easier pathfinding, although its hit rate for quest objectives is a bit lower than I'd like. A sprint button has been added, and it fits in so well it feels like an old friend. In addition, in what is objectively the correct decision, much of the overlap in voice actors for characters has been corrected by bringing in new talent to record new lines for certain races and characters. This has the unintended side effect of whiplashing me straight out of a nostalgic fugue state whenever new lines crop up unexpectedly, but that is not a downside, just a side effect. Unfortunately, the legendary Ralph Cosham passed away in 2014, so characters like Joffrey, Vincent, and other male Bretons couldn't receive new lines. One excellent new addition is the new voice for many Dunmer males, who I believe is Keith Sarabaika.
Val Morvain. Been making weapons and arms here in Anvil for 30 years. People say I do good work, and I don't aim to argue with them.
His distinct, gravelly but comforting voice, I feel, adds class and flavor to any setting. The UI is actually a bit mixed in my opinion. Its presentation is excellent, having just enough flavor to be easy on the eyes while still being readable, but there are some obvious oversights. For instance, you cannot see your current encumbrance while looting objects, which is kind of a big problem. The J key does not open the journal, the default keybind is tab, and J is unbound. That's kinda weird. Also, enter is the confirm key for inventory management. It really should be E or space, so there's a lot more mouse work than should be necessary. Also, the amount menu is actually missing a feature. These arrows on the end of the amount bar didn't used to just be for decoration. You could click them to manipulate the current amount by 1, but that just doesn't work anymore. Also, your character model in the equip screen appears bare-handed a lot, even when currently equipped with a weapon. It's a minor bug, but it's pretty consistent. Oblivion's classic menus were not great, and this is much improved, but in order to check active spell effects to see if, for instance, my bones are currently breaking due to an infectious disease, I have to go to the character menu and then press X and then mouse over each effect to see what they are called. It really should be much easier to see that you currently have porphyric hemophilia. We know better by now. So the UI is a bit undercooked, but not horrible. Oblivion fans are accustomed to dramatically worse. The character creator is kinda the same as always. You can make any number of flesh abominations, and no matter how hard you try to make a cute-as-a-button darling, she'll still always end up looking like a weird granny. The new skin textures have this weird parchment-like feel to them. I'm not really a fan of. But maybe that's just Bretons. The beast races have had an overhaul. Argonians look more like dinosaurs than lizards now. I could go either way on that. And Mer now look much more alien than before. In Classic, they were basically just different colored humans with ears and tusks, but now they have their signature slanted facial structure, and orcs' mouths are terrifying. Also, each race has the choice between 2 regions of origin. I literally don't know if this feature affects anything, but more buttons is always nice. One thing that is untouched is the soundtrack. It's the Oblivion OST, so it is literally perfect, do not touch it. However, the way that the background music loops seems to have changed. I find that it changes from one song to another much more frequently than before, or maybe that's just a memory hole of mine. I'm very pleased with the new interpretation of Oblivion's loading screens. Classic's loading screens were basically screenshots that were broken down into line work with a border in the center containing a bit more color and detail. It was functional, but the concept art from Morrowind was superior in my opinion. We have escaped the void hell with a slowly rotating 3D model that was Skyrim's loading screens in favor of a simple tableau of an artist's drafting table with a handful of rotating sketches. It's simple, it's easy on the eyes, it's functional, it's in the spirit of the original. Well done. I don't think that Uriel Septim has survived the transition to higher quality models particularly well. He doesn't look much like Patrick Stewart, or the actor that portrayed him in Daggerfall, or the JPEG of him from Arena. He is supposed to be 87 years old though, so maybe I can complain if I ever live that long. Leveling up works completely different than baseline Oblivion. I'm undecided whether the new system is better, but it is definitely more user-friendly. In Classic and Morrowind, every skill was governed by an attribute, and the amount of attribute points you could allocate to that attribute was determined by the raw amount of governed skill levels you received during that level. This incentivized very specific and generally unfun playstyles in order to min-max the point gain, and if you didn't do this, you could start getting rocked pretty hard at higher levels. This is pretty much fixed now because every time you level up you get 12 attribute points, called virtues, to allocate between 3 skills. but only between 3 skills, and no more than 5 to each, which is going to drive some people with OCD up the damn wall trying to get to round numbers, but at least you never miss out on attribute points for incorrect play. A major change to leveling is that you can now gain level progress from miscellaneous skills. This is the part I'm undecided on because in Classic, if you didn't want your combat difficulty to increase while getting better at non-combat skills such as speechcraft or alchemy, then you could simply take those skills as miscellaneous and not have to worry about it. But now you can't. If you focus on mercantile, speechcraft, alchemy, armor, security, or sneak, you'll start facing stronger enemies, but you won't actually be any stronger to fight them. The new virtue system makes the level scaling a bit less of a brick wall to poorly optimized characters, but it's definitely a bold choice. As for minigames, they're all the way you remember them. Lockpicking has the same timing and mechanics, although the sound effects have been remastered, so you'll have to relearn how to pick by ear. It's not too bad, though. Speechcraft remains a relatively worthless skill in the long run, but its minigame did receive one upgrade. After completing the minigame one time with any individual character, you will now have a visual indicator in the HUD of their preferences. Their liked subject will be green, their hated will be red. However, the feedback from getting a character to their current max possible disposition is literally just that you can't click the button anymore. It's not terribly clear. Oblivion Classic is actually pretty fresh in my mind, after having done a speedrun of getting 1,000,000 coins in every game in the franchise last year, so the improvements on display for this game are very clear and very appreciated to me, and I'm sure there are even more under-the-hood changes to XP progression that I'm not aware of yet. But to someone that may not have played Oblivion at all since its launch period almost 20 years ago, and has only occasionally played Skyrim since, then I feel pretty confident in saying that this remaster will feel like coming home again. And I was delighted to see that it was not put up as a full-price premium title, costing only 67 Canadian dollars or 50 USD. This is something that Microsoft has been doing lately. Similar to Hi-Fi Rush, which had no marketing budget at all and was shadow dropped as a half-price offering, so was Oblivion Remaster. Modern games usually spend more on marketing than development, and the price tag tends to reflect that. You spend more on video game ads than you spend on video games these days. Gracefully, the baseline version of the game at the lowest price still includes what is considered to be the Digital Deluxe Edition of Classic Oblivion. You get Shivering Isles, Knights of the Nine, all the plug-in DLCs like Frostcrag Spire and Horse Armor. Although there is literally somehow still paid DLC for additional horse armor, it's almost like they couldn't help themselves. The Digital Deluxe of Remaster is just more weapons and armor and different horse skins. It's basically what you buy if you want to tip the developer. The game does drink a solid 120 gigs of hard drive space, and I'm sure that if you do not have it installed on a modern protocol NVMe, or at least a decent SSD, it's probably got some chonky load screens to it, but for me, it's just about the same as Classic. And honestly, just having this nice full screen image during the load screens makes them feel so much better than Skyrim's. A few nitpicks I can make is that in many places physics objects placed on shelves in stores just fly off onto the floor the instant you enter the cell for the first time. And during the quest, Where Spirits Have Lease, I got legitimately stuck because the new texture for the note that I was supposed to pick up blended in with the floor texture so well, I had to pull up the wiki for this quest I've done at least 10 times already. Also, there was some audio layering glitches and the crowd cheering in the arena. Oh, and the fur just kinda falls off of dogs when they are slain. When you crouch, the whole screen gets a vignette effect and becomes darkened. This is unnecessary because of the sneak indicator on the crosshair, and I can't turn it off. The remaster was the perfect time to add the quality of life of dropped weapons being lootable from a corpse's main inventory, and that hasn't happened. Minor stuff. This is fine. I sat down and played like 12 hours of Oblivion Remastered on launch day, and the game didn't crash, and despite having a pseudo-encyclopedic knowledge of the game, I somehow felt like I was discovering it for the first time. The Elder Scrolls may be in a wayward and half-forgotten place right now, but this is just a win. I see few, if any, reasons to recommend Classic over this new offering, especially when it eventually goes on sale. If you're familiar with my channel, you know that I rather like the Elder Scrolls series. But that franchise is dead. Bethesda killed it. Skyrim is 14 years old. It's time to move on. Stop me if you've heard this before, but Kingdom Come Deliverance is just Oblivion 2. We caught the developers red-handed. And I think Oblivion 2 is all I've ever really wanted. I guess sometimes things just work out.